Hi, I'm Auntie Sharon. I'm the host of Mary's Eclectic Interests, and today we have Tim Pratt with us. Tim, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Sharon, I'm Tim Pratt. I'm the recycling manager for the cities of Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Crystal, and New Hope.
I'm from Brooklyn Center.
Oh, great.
Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to do? I see all this stuff here. I'm excited to know what we're going to be seeing today.
Okay. Well, I have the unique pleasure of being paid to talk trash. And so that is why I am here today to talk about recycling right. When we
recycling right? Is there a wrong way?
Yes, and we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
First, a little background. You know, when we set up these programs about 30 years ago, it was all the emphasis was keeping stuff out of the trash. If you remember the trash barge that went up and down the East Coast, and everybody wanted to say, how could we keep stuff out of the trash? Well, let's recycle. Great. That is a good way to keep stuff out of the trash. But really, if the material is not made into something new, it's not actually recycled.
Oh.
And as luck would have it, in Minnesota, we have more than 1,000 manufacturers who take our old materials, our recyclables, and use that as feedstock to make their new products. But if you are a manufacturer that needs plastic bottles, you don't want paper.
True.
And we are finding that people are putting more and more stuff in there because they want to keep it out of the trash.
Right.
And we're getting stuff in there that we have to then pay to extract and then throw in the trash at the sorting facility. Or, heaven forbid, the stuff gets to the manufacturer, they've got to remove it and throw it in the trash. So our machines at the sorting facility are set up to deal really well with getting these materials into their individual components so they can go to manufacturers and be sold and made into something new.
So at my house, we have a big container, and you just throw it all in there. We used to separate it, but now it all goes in there together.
Yes.
So what happens when it gets to the plant?
Okay. So it goes to a sorting facility, and there are 5 of them here in the Twin Cities area, where there's a mixture of humans and machines that separate these materials back into their individual components. And then they're baled and shipped to a manufacturer. So for instance, if you remember the old Waldorf paper in St. Paul, just off of 94 at Crete and Vandalia.
Okay.
That's still there. It's now owned by a company called West Rock. And all it uses is recycled paper to make new paper products.
Oh, okay.
And so from your curb to the sorting facility, to the manufacturer, and then back to the shelves for you to buy something new.
So when I put my recycling into the can, I have to make sure it's clean, don't I?
To a certain extent, yes. So for instance, if there is a pop bottle, you want it to be empty. We do find people won't finish their pop and they'll put it in there.
Oh, yes.
The machinery that sorts this actually uses a puff of air to push it into the place where it needs to be. And if it's got liquid in there, that puff of air isn't strong enough to push it into the bunker where it's going to end up. Conversely,
what happens to it then?
It may well end up in the trash.
Oh.
Yes. But things like, say, this soup can, you don't need to remove the label.
You don't have to anymore?
No.
Well, I used to always have to remove it, but now you don't.
Yeah, because when it goes into the furnace at the steel plant, the paper will burn off and it won't be a contaminant.
Oh,
but if there are a whole bunch of soup still in there, that's a problem because it's not going to burn off. So there are a certain amount of clean that it needs to be.
Okay.
But you're never going to get all the peanut butter out of a peanut butter jar.
Oh, that's true.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But do a good faith effort, give it a quick rinse.
Right.
You know, and if it's the bottle, put the cap back on, and that helps keep any residual liquids from flowing around as well. So.
Well, and then also, it was a few years ago where you weren't able to recycle those little caps on those.
Correct. When we first started taking plastic bottles, we said, take the caps off. And that's because the manufacturers who wanted this bottle plastic wanted just the bottle plastic. And the cap is a different type of plastic. So they would shred all of this up, put it into a big vat of water, and or solution, I should say, and the cap plastic would float, the bottle plastic would sink. They would scrape off that bottle or cap plastic off the top and throw it in the trash because they didn't want it. They wanted just the bottle plastic. Well, now manufacturers who want this plastic from the cap said, hey, wait a second, we need more of that. We're willing to buy that from you. So the manufacturer said, hey, wait a second, we've got to get rid of this stuff anyway because there's still caps on there no matter what we say. And instead of paying to throw it away, we can get paid to sell it to another manufacturer. So now they're saying leave them on because it's a source of income for us now.
So what about like these kinds of things and stuff?
So this is one of the newest items that we've added to the program, which is milk cartons and juice boxes. And they have a very high-grade fiber in the middle here. These will go to paper mills that will then kind of peel back the outer layers, scrape off the inner plastic layers, and harvest those fibers from the middle. So it's a very high-quality paper, and they can't get enough of it.
How much do they get from something like that?
Enough to make it worth their financial while. Recycling is a way to provide material to manufacturers so they can make new products. It's more than just keeping stuff out of the trash. Because that's why we're talking about recycling right, is because we're getting stuff that people wish would be recycled, that they feel guilty about putting in the trash, and that we cannot accept at the curb. So I brought, these are all the traditional types of recycling. And we talked about the plastic bottles. And of course everyone knows that aluminum cans are recyclable.
Oh yes. I even have a crusher in my garage.
You don't need to crush them.
I don't need to do that anymore?
No.
Wow.
In fact, we would actually kind of prefer that you didn't.
Oh, really?
Because when the machinery that sorts these things knows that paper is flat and bottles and cans are three-dimensional. And so it's designed to send the stuff that's flat over into the paper line and the stuff that's three-dimensional off into the bottles and cans line for further sorting. So if they get too flat, then the machinery can't tell and can send it in the wrong direction.
Oh, wow.
So you don't need to do all that work to crush it anymore. Just put it in whole and you're good to go.
Do you ever take the tabs off and, like, I take them off and I give them to Ronald McDonald? Do they still do that?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Aluminum is actually very valuable because making new aluminum from recycled aluminum uses 95% less energy.
Wow.
So you can imagine an aluminum manufacturer would really like to get your old bottles and cans.
Oh, definitely.
And you know, everyone knows about things like they should put in their recycling like junk mail or magazines. And we were talking earlier about when should you shred this kind of stuff. We find a lot of people think just because it has your name and address on there that somebody could use that information to steal your identity.
I
and
always shred that part.
Not correct.
And I shouldn't be shredding it?
You don't need to shred that because they can't, just from your name and address, they cannot steal your identity. They need other information like your social security number, date of birth, things like that. So if it's just something that has your name and address, go ahead and put that in your recycling as is. There's no need to shred it. And so that saves you some effort.
Yes.
But we also prefer not to have the shredded material in your cart. And that's because anything that's less than 2 inches square falls through the machinery, ends up on the floor, gets swept away, and gets put in the trash.
Not recycled?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
So if there were any shredded material loose in your cart, it's not going to get turned into new paper.
Oh.
Okay.
So what do you do with the shredded stuff then? Is there a way to still be able to recycle it?
So you can use a public event. So for instance, we have 2 special materials drop-off days, one in the spring, one in the fall, every year. And we have free paper shredding at those events.
Okay.
So bring that there. That's the preferred method because then that material will go straight from that shredding truck right to the paper mill. There's no machinery involved. It can't get lost.
Good.
Otherwise, if you do shred at home, you can put it into a brown paper bag.
It has to be brown, not plastic?
Correct. And then tape or staple the bag shut and write on the outside shredded paper.
Oh, wow.
That way the guys on the line know that it's there's no trash inside the bag. They know
Yeah.
it's shredded paper, and they'll pick it up and they'll put it in with the recycling where it's supposed to go. We don't want stuff in plastic bags. So, because plastic bags, well, one, they don't want to open them because they don't know if it's trash or not inside.
That's true.
Two, plastic bags get caught in the machinery at the sorting facility.
Oh, they do?
Yes. So we don't want people putting their recycling in plastic bags and then putting that in their cart. And I can understand the appeal of doing that. In my home recycling station, I have under the sink, there's a container for paper, and then there's another for bottles and cans. And the reason why I do that, even though they all get mixed together in my cart, is because you got residual liquids and things in your bottles and cans.
Yes.
So I line that with a plastic bag. But
Okay.
then when it's full, I take that cart out and empty it into my recycling cart and then bring it back and use it again.
Okay. So that means that you shouldn't be recycling any of your bags, putting any of the bags into the recycling?
Correct.
I did not know that.
Those should go back to the store.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yes.
I learned something.
So there's two reasons. One, the manufacturers who use those bags need them to be pretty clean. So they
Okay.
don't want other items mixed in there, and they don't want the dirt or the residual liquids that would come if they got mixed in with the other materials in the truck or at the sorting facility. And then the other is that it is so hard to try and capture those materials at the sorting facility, and that they often just get wound up around the machinery. And then when that happens, they have to shut down the plant, and guys have to go in there and cut them off by hand.
Wow.
It's a problem not only here in Minnesota, but actually nationwide. That's the #1 contaminant in the recycling system is plastic bags.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that. That's a good thing to know. Recycling.
Yeah. So we've got our mail and our magazines. We'll put those
I
in
do
there.
have one question though about
Yeah.
the magazines.
Yes.
Now I thought that shiny paper was a no-no at one time in recycling.
Well, at the very beginning, when we were setting these programs up, for instance, like a newspaper mill would only make newspapers. Well, we've got fewer newspapers in the country, and they make smaller sheets,
Right.
and they don't. But they've figured out their processes so that actually a magazine, I'm going to grab that back out here. This has newer fibers, and they're long and they're strong. And so when you mix it in with the newspaper, you get better quality paper and it lasts longer. So they want these
Interesting.
together now.
Okay, so now we can do our magazines.
Yes.
I don't have to tear off the cover anymore.
No, you
the
don't
shiny
need to.
stuff. Good.
And we talked about the milk cartons and juice boxes.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about glass bottles and jars. Now,
Yes.
it is just bottles and jars. We don't want other types of glass. And people will say, well, what are you talking about? Why
Yeah.
couldn't I put a drinking glass in there? Why
Oh.
can't I put window pane in there? Well, as it turns out, the glass bottle manufacturers use, or their furnaces heat the material up to a certain temperature, and that is enough to melt this type of glass. But drinking glasses melt at a different temperature.
Oh, they do?
Yes. So even though they're both glass,
Yeah.
they don't work together when you take them to the manufacturing facility.
Wow, I didn't
So
know
they
that.
end up as slag in the furnace at the glass
What do you mean by
manufacturing.
slag?
Slag is the stuff that sticks to the side of the, so you've got all that molten glass in the middle, and you've got the other stuff that sticks to the side. And eventually they have to go in and they have to jackhammer that stuff off the side of the furnace
kidding.
at the
Wow.
glass manufacturer. So just bottles and jars for glass. But any color, white, green, brown, or even the blue ones. The color doesn't matter.
Okay.
But just bottles and jars. We talked about the steel cans. And then we've also expanded on our plastics. So it used to be it was just the plastic bottles, and we even
Yes.
said numbers 1 and number 2. Now we say don't worry about the numbers. because the numbers are a voluntary standard from the industry. It's not government regulated. And if you spend all of that time looking to see if it's got a number, you're going to get eye strain.
Right.
Because since it's a voluntary standard, they can make it whatever size they want.
Oh, yeah.
But all it does is just denote what's the base plastic used to make, or the base polymer used to make that plastic. It doesn't mean that there's a manufacturer that wants to buy that plastic and turn it into something new.
Okay.
And thus recycle it. Now we found more markets, and so now we do take like these margarine tubs, yogurt containers, even these berry clamshells. So we say don't look for the numbers, instead use this terminology. If it's a plastic bottle or a jug, so like a juice jug or a laundry detergent jug, cups like yogurt cups, or containers like the margarine container or your berry container.
Okay.
If you go by material type, that's going to, the manufacturers who make these use the type of plastic that they want back to make new ones.
Okay.
So go by that terminology, don't go by the numbers. So remember plastic bottles,
Yeah, I could never
jugs,
get a
cups,
magnifying
and
out to see
containers.
that.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
And then there's your traditional cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
And you don't need to get them into your cart.
You don't.
If you've got oversized boxes, if you just flatten them down, tape or tie them together in bundles that are about 3 to 4 foot square, 6 inches thick, you can
Okay.
put those bundles next to your cart, and the drivers will get out and get them.
Oh, that's good.
Saves you a lot of space, especially these days when people are getting a lot of stuff that they order off the internet.
Yes.
And they get those deliveries. We've seen a lot of increase in cardboard because of that. So save yourself some space, tape or tie them together, put them next to your cart.
Okay.
Saves room in the
Great.
cart. And then we want to talk about the other type of cardboard. This is actually called box board, and it's a thinner type of cardboard. It doesn't have the wavy stuff in the middle.
Okay.
If it goes in your cupboards, we want those boxes.
Okay.
And I'm going to grab an example of what we don't want.
Oh, good.
So what we don't want are these types of boxes. Now they look exactly the same, don't they? The difference is that this box is for a product that is designed to go in your refrigerator or your freezer. And if you think about it, when you get this at the supermarket, it's in the cold. You bring it out into the warmer air in the supermarket, put it in your car, take it home. In that process, the temperature difference can cause you to get condensation on it. That water is normally could break down the cardboard. Not good if you're trying to get your food home and put it in the refrigerator.
Right.
So what they do is they spray coat the inside with a very thin layer of plastic.
Oh, wow.
It's great for keeping the condensation off and keep the cardboard from falling apart. Not great if you want to put it in a big vat of water at the paper mill and turn it up and try to make new paper out of it. So items like that are designed to go in your refrigerator or your freezer, we say, put those in your trash.
Oh, and so there's no way of recycling this at all then, because it has that coating on it.
Correct. And these are some of the other common things that we will find in the recycling carts that we don't want. So this is styrofoam.
That's a no?
And people will think because it has the recycling symbol there, they think it's the recycling symbol.
It kind of does look like it.
It's the chasing arrows with the number in the middle. They think, oh, it's recyclable.
It's not?
No, as mentioned, that's that voluntary standard that the plastics industry created to let everybody know what the base resin is to make this plastic. But there aren't manufacturers who want to buy this and turn it into new products.
So you can't really melt this down to anything.
Correct. And let's see, we talked about plastic bags and why we shouldn't recycle those. Well, we talked about why you shouldn't use a bottle glass. Some of the other things we'll see here are this time of year in particular, people will give us their strings of holiday lights. And you can bring strings of holiday lights out to the Hennepin County drop-off facility, which is at 8100 Jefferson Highway in Brooklyn Park.
Okay.
And they have a separate area that you can bring these and put them, and they will go to a manufacturer who will remove the copper from the metal, because copper is a valuable metal.
Oh, there's copper in between
Copper
it? Okay.
wiring in the middle there. However, this type of material, also, we call these tanglers. Just like this
They get
plastic
tangled.
bag that can get wrapped around the machinery at the sorting facility, the same thing is going to happen with the wire. It's going to get wrapped around the machinery. And again, they've got to go in and they've got to cut it off, and we can't capture that material to have it recycled.
Well, that makes sense.
But people have heard, oh, you can recycle your holiday lights. Yes, you can, but you can't recycle them in your cart. Just like you
Okay.
can't recycle plastic bags in your cart, but you can if you take them back to the grocery store. And here's another thing that we see. These are batteries.
Oh, yeah.
Again, you can recycle batteries, but you can't recycle them in your cart. So the city halls and the Hennepin County libraries all have containers where you can bring batteries and drop them off for free. But don't put them in your cart. One thing that people may not realize too is like these button batteries, they have lithium, which is a household hazardous waste. So we want to keep these out of the trash because it's a hazardous waste.
Yeah.
Another thing, some of these longer rechargeable batteries that have lithium, if they're not fully discharged, they can actually start paper on fire.
Oh, wow.
So if you put them in your cart with your papers and they're not fully discharged, they could become a fire hazard. And there have been cases in other parts of the country where there have been fires at recycling sorting facilities because they were started by batteries. Another thing that we will see this time of the year is yard waste.
Oh, yeah? In the recycling?
Yes, folks I have talked to have said, well, it's recyclable, right? Well, it's compostable, which is a form of recycling, if you will. You're taking the leaves, they're degrading, turning into compost, a new product, but we can't capture them in the recycling.
Okay.
So please, we say to people, take these to the Maple Grove Yard Waste site, and if you're one of the member cities, you know, which Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Crystal, New Hope are all part of that. You can drop it all off there for free.
Oh, that's good to know.
And it will get composted, and residents can actually go and pick up some compost for free if they wish.
They call their city up and ask them and find out where to recycle these?
Sure. Actually, I would say call us, our offices, as opposed to the folks at the City Hall, because we're the ones, like I said, that get paid to talk trash. And so we're the experts on that subject.
Can you tell us your telephone number then?
Yep. They can go to either the website, which in Brooklyn Park is brooklynpark.org/recycling.
Okay.
Or if you live in Brooklyn Center, Crystal, or New Hope, it's HRG, which stands for the Hennepin Recycling Group.
Okay.
So they've formed a group, the Hennepin Recycling Group. So hrg-recycling.com. So you can go to either one of those websites, the 24 hours a day, or you can call us during business hours, and that number is 763-493-8006, and that's on the sticker that is on your recycling cart. Yeah, and then we've got a couple more things that we see here. So people, we'll see facial tissues, we'll see napkins. People think it's paper, and you can recycle that.
It's not?
No. It's not. The reason is that in order to get them to feel nice and soft, they have kind of chopped up the fibers pretty short. You know, so for instance, the shredded paper that we talked about, it can't get made into new sheets of paper, but shredded paper is made into napkins and toilet paper.
Okay.
But because the fibers have been chopped up and shortened, you can't take it back and make it into something new.
You can't?
No. So once this goes, once it gets made into a napkin or a facial tissue or something like that, you can compost it, but you can't recycle it.
Oh, wow, that's good to know. I had no idea of that.
Yeah. And then we talked about, this is just I borrowed this from the Parks Department. This is a cone. People will think, oh, it's plastic.
It does. It looks like plastic.
I can throw it. Well, no.
It feels like plastic.
Well, it is plastic, but it
Yeah.
isn't something that we know what the properties are, so there isn't a manufacturer that says, sell me some of that because I want to buy it and make it into something new. Whereas with a plastic bottle, they know what it is because there are standards about what that plastic is.
Right.
And so if they melt it down, they know what the properties are, they know it will work in their machinery. They don't know what this is and they don't want it. But people will say, but it's plastic. All plastic is recyclable, right? Well, no.
Boy, I'm
So-
learning a lot today.
So if it's not that plastic bottle, jug, cup, or container, don't put it in your cart.
Don't put it in the cart.
In fact, that's what we say, if you're in doubt,
Yeah?
throw it out. Because we would rather have it go in the trash stream and be dealt that way than to risk contaminating a load of good recyclables with something that we don't want or could damage the equipment or inhibit, in the case of plastics, the wrong plastics, the ability for it to melt and deform into a new product.
So even though they try to sort out when they get there, sometimes they might miss some things.
Yes. So typically, what we call the residual rate at a sorting facility is about 6 to 8%. So 6 to 8% of the material that comes in is trash that gets removed and gets thrown into the trash at the sorting facility.
Okay.
But there is other stuff that doesn't get caught. And then that can end up in bales of material that gets sent to the manufacturers. And that increases their costs because not only do they have to remove that before they make their new product, then they have to pay to dispose of it. And then they have to buy more stuff to make up for the volume of material they thought they were getting from the original bale.
Wow. And I think there's one more thing that a lot of people don't know if to recycle or not, and that's like clothes.
Yes. And you were right. 85% of unwanted clothing is disposed of by throwing it in the trash. People don't donate it, or they don't know what to do with it. And that's understandable. You know, if you're cleaning out your grandmother's house or something, you've got stuff that isn't vintage, or you've got kids and they've worn holes and stuff, you don't really want to donate that because they can't sell it.
Right.
So we've got this orange bag clothing recycling program. Folks can take their unwanted clothing. So for instance, this is an old pair of my socks where the elastic is worn out. No good anymore. You just take that and you put it in the orange plastic bag here. And it's got the ties here. You tie it off and put this next to your cart on recycling day because we've got a different vehicle that's driving around to pick these up.
Oh, okay.
And then these will be graded. So the stuff that is reusable will go so that it can be used by other humans. But if it's got rips or stains or things of that sort, it will be recycled.
Okay.
So we'll turn it into things like shop rags, insulation, and whatnot. So it's a great way to deal with those things that you wouldn't have donated.
Yes, that's great. I mean, there's some wonderful things happening out there in the cities. Do you want to give that number one more time?
Sure, the number is 763-493-8006.
Something you want to share, one last comment you want to share with our viewers?
Yeah, so remember that if it's not on the yes list, if you go to the website and see the things that we want, if you don't see your item on that list, please throw it out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Sure,
it was
Sharon,
so
thank you
nice
for
to
having
see
me.
you. Thank you for coming. This was Mary's Eclectic Interests. Bye now.